the recent appointment of the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Bashir Adeniyi, MFR, as the chairperson of the World Customs Organization Council is both historic and timely. As the first Nigerian to assume this position, his emergence signals a growing recognition of Nigeria's strategic importance in global trade and customs administration. It also underscores the increasing competence of Nigerian technocrats on the world stage. Joining us on the show to discuss the achievements of the Nigeria Customs Service under the leadership of Bashir Adeniyi, MFR, and his election as chairman, World Customs Organization, Professor Okey Ikechukwu, MNI, a renowned professor of strategic management and human capital development, joins us this morning. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Glad to be here. And I'd like to start by announcing that I'm not wearing my cap. For fear that Ruben might be here and rob me of it.
First of his kind. All right. So, the CGC Adeniyi's election, as the chairman of WCO, comes with loads of responsibilities. 186 member nations looking towards the Council for Direction and Leadership. What do you consider will be the major challenges ahead that he needs to brace up for?
Well, he's going to be handling 186 countries with different orientations administratively, etc. But more than that, system differences also. So what I expect is that, customs has the twin and challenging duty, and this will apply particularly in his case, of managing facilitation and enforcement. It's supposed to enable goods coming, which is in order. But then, when you say you want to facilitate trade, does that remove from you the need to also enforce rules, enforce laws pertaining to what should be done correctly? So that's one of the challenges. The other will be system integration. Among these 186 countries, it's not likely that all of them are on the same page. So what you're going to find is that some will have to upgrade their capacities and equipment, among other things. So those will be some of the challenges. But again, beyond and all of that, there's a further question. How can he deal with this? Is he the kind of person who can deal with it? And the answer is yes. If you look at his trajectory, he came into the customs. One of the things that hadn't happened for 12 years before he became CG was the annual Comptroller General's Conference, during which you have what you might call, whatever it is, but what you like to notice that the Chief of Army Staff Conference every year takes place, Chief of Air Staff, Chief of Defense, and Naval Staff. A thoroughbred professional, when he gets into a position, looks at what needs to be done for it to happen. So if you look at the challenges he has dealt with in Nigeria and how he has leveraged the Nigerian customs, there will be no question about what will happen at WTO. Each of the things he has done, either in reform or general administration, have been grounded on the needs of the environment. That pattern is likely to continue. Facilitation, resource enforcement, system upgrade across nations, harmonization of procedures, the building of trust, among other things. So those are some of the things I think he might need to do.
Fantastic. And I understand he's taking over from a gentleman from South Africa, from the South African Revenue Services. But, when we have one of our own in these positions, we always ask ourselves, what is the impact on Nigeria? We saw the great work of Akinwumi Adesina when he was at the helm of AFDB. We see the great work of Professor Benedict Orama, Afrexim Bank. Nigeria is directly feeling the impact of having one of our own at the helm of these great multilateral organizations. How can Nigeria Customs Service benefit from having the Comptroller General as chairman of WCO?
I think in this celebration, we have to be careful by noting that Nigeria was not being done in favor by Adeniyi's appointment. His capacity is what, first of all, earned him the appointment. If you look at all the measures and reforms he has taken, he has brought into play, some of the extant agreements, some of the things he concluded with countries, about 6 different, if we can enumerate them. So you find that the world saw a man who understood the sector, whose experience has shown him to be a systems person, and who, in addition to expanding collaboration across international frontiers, actually has done fantastically well locally. So to that extent, we first start by acknowledging that if they were not satisfied with his credentials, he wouldn't have gotten that appointment. That's number one. Now that he's gotten the appointment, it's a credit to Nigeria at 3 levels. At the first level, that the president or presidency choose the right kind of person for the job. And I'll dwell a little on that. You know, when his name was announced, you know, he was head of public relations in customs. Some people said, oh, how can they make a man like that? CG is a public relations person. The same argument came up when Festus was appointed aviation minister, Festus Keyamo, and when Dele Alake was also appointed minister for solid minerals. People mistake titles for capacity. If you're public relations of an organization, you're actually most of the time one of the most informed about the challenges of the organization. Because if you look at all the reforms he has carried out, they hit to the soul of what will make Nigeria acquire an international profile. So that is the other thing on the table. A competent person who has facilitated a lot of international collaborations, a nation that was intelligent enough to appoint the right person, and then finally for Nigeria, it makes a point that needs to be repeated. This country has capacity, this country has a competent people. This country, when it puts competent people out there, they outshine the rest of the world. So what it does for us is to say Nigeria has come of age in immigration services, in customs services and custom management. Nigeria has become outstanding in the impact it is making. And from Adeniyi's trajectory, one other thing has become clear, that under him, what Amfit could not achieve sometime in 2002, you may be aware of it, there was an African integrated ministerial conference on, trade facilitation. It didn't go anywhere because it was largely theoretical. But a hands-on person is going to do that. So, yeah, he points a lot. He gives us a lot of credit, raises our profile across the perception of nations, means that more countries will be dealing confidently with us because under him, the reform, the decongestion of ports alone, how many containers? He cleared all of them, and even the country earned 1.5 billion from that clearing of the congestion. You look at Lily Pond, that place was sending out, 317, single declaration goods. Under Adeniyi, the figure rose to 7,464. You cannot have that kind of profile and they're saying they're giving you a favor. They're recognizing capacity, and it belongs to Nigeria. So the pride is ours. The pride is that of the customs, and the pride is that of professionals. And I speak of professionals because, remember, he came there after the 8-year tenure of another person. See what he has done within that short time. And all of it silently. I think sometime on 8th of June last year, I had a piece on the back page of This Day on customs. The title was New and Pleasant Things Going On in the Customs. And that's when we got the news, we saw it in the news, that Customs was installing a scanning facility that can clear 200 containers in 1 hour.
Agreed.
I mean, we can go on and on.
Definitely. And you said that this is the pride of Nigeria and is clearly somebody who is competent and has a proven track record. But being that he is the first Nigerian in this role, in what ways do you think the Nigerian government and also the Nigerian Customs Services can put effort into making sure that his tenure is successful?
If you want Adeniyi to succeed, don't rely on the structures, funding and facilities of the WCO. Fund him more to create an independent side office. In other words, yes, he's there, he's functioning, but the federal government has to give him extra leverage. So call him for a meeting and ask him what executive orders will further facilitate your efficiency and profile as a new chairman. Secondly, what funding do you need? Thirdly, do you need any extra person? And I'll cite, when I was special assistant to the Minister of Information, one of the first things I did was to recruit people outside of every other thing, for them to be running what I call a newsroom project. So what government has to do for the CG is to give him what I call efficiency, facilitation, funding, and infrastructure. Give him, you talk about security, this is the time to deploy a security vote if you like. He needs funding because this will be further leverage. It's not just the job of custom administration that he's doing, no. He has become an ambassador. And being somebody who is an experienced public relations and intergovernmental affairs manager of several years, of many years standing over a decade, you've got the right man to complement whatever foreign affairs is doing about this country at the level of trade facilitation, at the level of economic competence, at the level of the role we ought to play in world trade, and more importantly, at the level of finding out the bottlenecks Nigerian exporters and Nigerian export system is having. That is it. Leverage him. Let him, ask him whether there's executive facilitation, facilitate it, provide him extra funding. Because look at customs that turned in double the revenue of last year. On all fronts, is doing well. Promotion is now, well, more merit-based. Collapse of inspection platforms. The list is endless, but it's not the list we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that he now has an additional wing to fly with. And they should put some air below that, or under that wing.
So you're saying, let's fund him internally, let's help him, soar well and do well. Also, what will be your advice team and your council team? Africa is emerging. Intra-African trade is a big deal. I mean, we know the role, customs play in all of this. Also, global trade is going to be overseen in about 186 countries. He has his fellow Nigerian sister in WTO there, because so there's a lot of... Yes, now, we are Nigerians. We are family-oriented. So, and I feel proud saying that. Fellow Nigerian sister in WTO, he's leading the WTO CEO here. How can he leverage on that, relations and all of that?
Well, one or two things to consider. First of all, he is there as head of the WCO. He only happens to be a Nigerian. Now, since Okonjo-Iweala is also in that same address, working together doesn't mean subverting the overall international system. It means trying to create paradigms that will not put Nigeria at a disadvantage. Today, there's tariff war, serious tariff war. Donald Trump is moving like a drunken sailor, sometimes correctly, sometimes wrongly. China is firing back, and all these other countries. Now, in all of this, who is responsible for tariff collection, management, and administration in any country? It's some customs. Am I right? If that is so, then that means that some leveling might just come from the place people are not looking, which is the new head of the WCO. That's why I'm saying it has to be leveraged. Whatever gain comes under him should be projected nationally and internationally, deliberately, to push both his profile and the profile of the country, to earn Africa some respect, because no matter how we choose to look at it, we are not, Africa as a continent is simply the exporter of first-time, unprocessed goods with very limited value addition. And even at that, the disadvantage remains. In fact, he is the person, I think, that can rewrite the profile of African economies. If trade is facilitated, tariffs are well managed, Africa will be able to have a point of view. This is the time to have an African point of view. And I think one of the things he should do is to actually find a way of convening some kind of roundtable, first of all, among regional heads of customs services, then Africa. They developed a common position from the West African region to the African. And so when they are going to the international, there's a voice, which is what others do. And he's somebody who has demonstrated profound capacity for that kind of engagement at every level and very silently, with results that everybody can see.
And this is the thing, is that we've been trying to do everything possible to address the, especially non-tariff barriers with intra-African trade. And the African Continental Free Trade Agreement was supposed to be a vehicle that will allow us to do that. Now, a lot of countries have already ratified it, but it's not translating into anything practically. And I bring this up because, of course, we've been speaking about Donald Trump and the tariffs, ad nauseum, and the solution is always, well, intra-African trade and so forth, but we're sluggish in doing so. And some of that sluggishness is not for lack of not wanting to, but because these non-tariff barriers continue to exist, many of which sit in the power within customs, that is held within the customs services. Given this role and the influence that you think he can bring to the African continent, the global south, to strengthen trade within global south as well, isn't there a concern that there might be pushback? Because everybody right now is scampering to try and see how they can balance their economies after how they've been thrown off by the shift of the global world order. If he's to carry that matter on his head, the politics in these international organizations.
You want to dominate us and all that.
What would the pushback be like?
Now, before the pushback, let's look at after. I anchored the very first public engagement of that Africa Free Trade Agreement. And I walked away with a lot of disappointment, and I'm glad this matter is coming up independently. You see, there's a difference between economic idealism and the kind of realism that will enable you know what to do to make something work. African countries celebrate agreements. Oh, we've signed this agreement, you know. They won't know where the copy is, and it doesn't apply. And that's why another thing Adeniyi did is fantastic. The, what do you call it? The point of origin may not be the exact expression. If you're bringing goods into Nigeria, by the reforms he has ratified internationally and which is working, we know where you're coming from. So already before your goods arrive, we can determine the relationship our country has with you. Are you one of those to get concessions? What's the appropriate tariff? So it's not when you come here we start quarreling over that. That has happened. But going back to after, the idealism is admirable, but it's delusional. And I hope they are listening. Very delusional because it's one, I think the very first, I thought that was 3 years ago. Like I said, I called it. A lot of, oh, this is what would happen if Nigeria does this. What leg do you have on the ground? I come and tell you, oh, Rufai, you know, if we cultivate all the land in Maiduguri, Nigeria will have excess food. You say, yes, that's a proposal. Cultivate all the land. You haven't told us how to deal with bandits. Yeah. You haven't told us, so after...
You haven't even told us how to deal with yield per hectare.
Yes, and the fact that Maiduguri has been, much of the people have left over some time, and so you have a large uncultivated land where real desertification has taken place. But you sit down, carry out a retreat on how much food will come from Maiduguri, a land where you cannot cultivate without rehabilitating for 2 years. That's a challenge with after. Yeah. And you remember I mentioned AMFIT, African Ministerial Forum for Integrated Transportation, 2002. I was say to Minister of Transport, and Ojo, he was one who, and he convened in Nigeria. Why this is interesting to me is that, yes, immigration and custom are the ports, MPA and custom. So these are things we supervise, and you're talking about nearly 20 years ago. So I'm totally familiar. The thing that needs to be done to further complement what I know, Adeniyi will do fantastically, is for MPA to also measure up. So on the aftermath, he will achieve results. If you take his trajectory throughout the service, what you will discover is somebody who, for any assignment, he has what you call an end state. And that end state always delivers. You suppose at this stage in his life, appointed CG against all possible projections, he will want to deliver this. And his attitude, one, you know, because he's also in a NIPR, a fellow.
He's a fellow.
Yeah. So a man like that cannot have nonsense on his watch. And the good thing is that he doesn't make noise while doing it. So after, he may be the one, but rather with this position now, after may be forced to wake up and realize that results, not documents, not MOUs, not speeches, sometimes 7 pages, 8 pages, half of the people are sleeping. By the time you finish, the next person comes with another 8 pages, so everybody goes home just to doze off. Nothing happens. No, after is a fantastic idea, but it doesn't have legs on the ground. At least as far as I can see.
Thank you so much, Chef. And that's about all we can take this morning. Really appreciate you, Prof, for your time this morning. Vimba?
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with Professor Okey Ikechukwu. When you're delivering lectures, please call us. We'll come and take notes.